Danny Martinez stood on the porch of his ranch house and watched the twin suns set over the red plains of New Sonora. The alien world had been his home for 5 years now, but it still felt wrong somehow. The grass grew purple instead of green, and the wind carried a metallic taste that reminded him he was far from Earth. His family had been ranchers back in Arizona for generations, and when the government offered land grants on frontier planets, his father jumped at the chance. They said it would be just like the Old West, a new beginning for families willing to work hard and brave the unknown. His father had died 3 years ago when a dust storm caught him too far from shelter. The alien particles in the air had shredded his lungs before Danny could reach him. His mother followed 6 months later, her heart broken by grief and the harsh conditions of this unforgiving world. Now Danny was alone with 60 head of cattle that barely survived on the strange vegetation, and one horse named Thunder, who seemed to be the only Earth animal that actually thrived here. Thunder was special. The big black stallion had adapted to New Sonora in ways the scientists couldn't explain. He could breathe the thin atmosphere better than the cattle, and he seemed to sense danger hours before it arrived. The local wildlife feared him, even the 6-legged predators that occasionally wandered down from the mountain ranges. Danny had been offered a fortune for Thunder by corporate buyers, but he always refused. The horse was the last connection he had to his father, who had raised Thunder from a colt back on Earth. The communication terminal on his porch beeped 3 times. Danny didn't need to check it to know what the message said. Frontier Holdings Corporation had been sending the same notification every day for 2 weeks. He owed them 40,000 credits for equipment loans, water rights, and landing fees. They had bought out the original colonial charter 6 months ago, and suddenly every service that used to be free now cost money. Every family on New Sonora was drowning in debt, and one by one they were selling out and leaving. Danny walked inside and pulled up the message. 30 days to pay in full or face eviction and asset seizure. He had maybe 2,000 credits to his name. The cattle weren't worth much because no one wanted to buy livestock on a dying colony. His land was worthless except to the corporation, who would take it for pennies and probably strip mine it for the rare minerals in the soil. He sat down at his kitchen table and put his head in his hands. His father used to tell him stories about their Apache ancestors, though Danny had never paid much attention. His father was only 1/4 Apache and Danny even less. They looked more Hispanic than Native American, and his father had married a woman from Mexico City. The stories seemed like ancient history, tales of warriors and chiefs from a world that didn't exist anymore. What good were stories about honor and tradition when you were about to lose everything? A knock on the door startled him. Danny never got visitors. The nearest ranch was 40 miles away, and those neighbors had packed up and left 2 months ago. He opened the door carefully, his hand near the plasma pistol he kept by the entrance. Standing on his porch was a woman he had never seen before. She was tall and lean with long black hair tied back in a traditional braid. Her skin was dark brown and her features were unmistakably Native American. She wore clothes that looked like a mix between old Apache designs and modern space gear. Leather and fiber weave combined in patterns that seemed both ancient and futuristic. Her eyes were dark and intelligent, and when she looked at Danny, he felt like she could see right through him. "Danny Martinez," she said. It wasn't a question. "I'm Maria Blackfeather. I've traveled a long way to find you." Danny stared at her. "I don't know you. How do you know my name?" "Your great-great-grandmother was Rose Martinez, born Rose Longwalker of the Chiricahua Apache," Maria said. "She married a Mexican rancher and left the reservation in 1947. Your family has been running from who they are for 4 generations. I'm here to bring you home." "Home? This is my home," Danny said, though even as he spoke the words they felt hollow. Maria smiled slightly. "This is land you're about to lose. Home is something different. I want to buy your ranch and your horse Thunder. I'll pay you $1. Danny's face flushed with anger. "Are you mocking me? $1? I'm about to lose everything and you show up here offering me $1? "It's not a mockery," Maria said calmly. "It's tradition. Among our people, when you want to acknowledge someone's ownership and honor a transfer of property, you offer a token payment. $1 represents respect, recognition, and a bond between the buyer and seller. I'm not trying to cheat you, Danny. I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than this failing ranch." "I don't understand," Danny said. "Who are you really? What do you want?" Maria looked up at the darkening sky. I command a fleet of 300 ships, 10,000 Apache people who left Earth 30 years ago, to preserve our culture among the stars. We've been searching for a place to settle, a place to call our own. Your land, your connection to our people, and your horse thunder are exactly what we need. Take the dollar, Danny. Wait until dawn tomorrow. Then you'll understand everything. Danny should have said no. He should have closed the door and called security. But something in Maria's voice, something in her eyes made him pause. He thought about his father's stories, about warriors and honor and belonging to something greater than yourself. $1, he said slowly. Maria reached into her pocket and pulled out an old Earth coin, a silver dollar from 2089. She placed it in his palm, and her hand lingered on his for just a moment. Until dawn, she said, and then she walked away into the gathering darkness. Danny stood on his porch holding the coin, watching her disappear. Thunder whinnied from the stable, a sound almost like recognition. The alien wind blew across the purple plains, and for the first time in years, Danny felt like something was about to change. He just hoped he would survive whatever came with the sunrise. Danny didn't sleep that night. He sat on his porch with a bottle of whiskey and the silver dollar, turning the coin over and over in his fingers. The metal felt warm, almost alive. He kept replaying the conversation with Maria Blackfeather in his mind. A fleet of 300 ships, 10,000 Apache people. It sounded impossible, like something from a story or a fever dream. Thunder paced in his stable, restless and anxious. The horse kept nickering and stamping his hooves against the ground. Danny had never seen him act this way before. Animals could sense things humans couldn't, especially on alien worlds where the rules of nature were different. Maybe Thunder knew something was coming. Around midnight, Danny pulled up his personal terminal and searched for information about Maria Blackfeather. There were a few hits, but most of them were classified or redacted. What he could find painted an interesting picture. She had been a commander in the Earth Defense Forces during the Expansion Wars. She had earned 3 medals of valor and was decorated for defending a civilian transport convoy against pirate raiders near the Jupiter moons. Then 15 years ago, she disappeared from all official records. There were rumors, though, whispers on the frontier channels that Danny sometimes browsed late at night. Stories about a ghost fleet that appeared at the edges of human space, ships that used technology nobody could identify, combining human engineering with something else, something older. Some people claimed these ships helped colonies under attack. Others said they were smugglers or separatists. The rumors called them the Star Tribes, but no government would confirm they existed. Danny thought about his father again. The old man used to get drunk on nights like this and talk about the past. He would tell Danny about how their Apache ancestors had been warriors who defended their land against impossible odds, how they had been forced onto reservations and stripped of their culture, but somehow survived, how they adapted and endured even when the world tried to erase them. We got ranching in our blood, his father would say, but we got warrior blood too. Your great-great-grandmother, she walked off that reservation with nothing but pride and determination. She married outside the tribe because she wanted her children to have opportunities. But she never forgot who she was. She made me promise to remember, and I'm making you promise too. Danny had nodded and promised, but he had never really understood what his father meant. He was just a rancher trying to make a living on a frontier planet. What did ancient Apache traditions matter out here among the stars? But now, holding Maria's silver dollar, he wondered if maybe his father had known something he didn't. The night stretched on forever. Danny watched the stars wheel overhead, constellations he still couldn't name even after 5 years. New Sonora had 3 moons, and they cast strange shadows across the purple plains. In the distance, he could see the lights of the corporate processing facility, a reminder of who really controlled this world. Around 4 in the morning, Thunder suddenly went quiet. The horse stood perfectly still in his stable, his head raised and his ears pointed toward the eastern horizon. Danny stood up and walked to the edge of his porch, squinting into the darkness. He couldn't see anything unusual, but the air felt different. There was a pressure building, like right before a thunderstorm, except the sky was perfectly clear. He thought about calling someone, maybe the Colonial Security Office or one of the few remaining ranchers in the Southern District. But what would he say? A strange woman offered him $1 for his ranch and told him to wait until dawn. They would think he had lost his mind from isolation and grief. The eastern sky began to lighten around 5:30. New Sonora had a short night because the planet rotated faster than Earth. Danny made himself a pot of coffee, his hands shaking slightly as he poured. He didn't know if he was excited or terrified or both. Thunder had started moving again, walking in circles in his stable and occasionally rearing up on his hind legs. At exactly 6 o'clock, the sun broke over the horizon. Danny was standing in his front yard with his coffee cup, watching the dawn spread across the plains. The light hit the purple grass and made it shimmer like water. It was actually beautiful in an alien sort of way. Maybe this world wasn't so bad after all. Then he saw them. At first he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. There were shapes in the sky, dark spots against the orange and pink sunrise, but the spots were growing larger, moving closer. Danny dropped his coffee cup and it shattered on the ground. His mouth fell open and he couldn't make a sound. Ships, hundreds of ships. They dropped out of high orbit in a coordinated descent pattern that must have been planned down to the second. They weren't like the blocky corporate transports or the sleek military vessels Danny had seen before. These ships were curved and organic-looking, covered in patterns and symbols he recognized from his father's old books. Apache designs, traditional artwork transformed into spacecraft hulls. The lead ship was massive, at least twice the size of a corporate flagship. It had a painting of a lightning bolt along its side, and what looked like stylized horses running across its bow. Behind it came fighters and transports, cargo haulers, and what Danny guessed were defensive craft. The sky filled with them, blocking out the sunrise. The sound of their engines was like thunder, deep and powerful and ancient. Danny couldn't breathe. He stood frozen in his yard as the fleet descended. The ships began landing in a massive circle around his property, each one touching down with precision on the open plains. The purple grass flattened under their landing jets, creating a perfect ring of spacecraft that stretched for miles in every direction. Thunder was going crazy in his stable, screaming and kicking at the walls. The lead ship landed directly in front of Danny's house, maybe 200 yards away. A ramp extended from its side and Maria Blackfeather walked down, followed by dozens of people. They were all Apache. Danny could see it in their faces and their bearing. They wore the same mix of traditional and modern clothing, and they moved with a confidence and purpose he had never seen before. Maria walked straight toward him, a smile on her face. Behind her, the other ships were opening and people were streaming out. Thousands of people, men and women and children, old and young, all Apache. They brought equipment and supplies, vehicles and animals. Danny saw horses, actual earth horses, being led down ramps. He saw construction equipment starting to unload. He saw families gathering together and children running across the purple grass. Maria stopped in front of him and extended her hand. Danny shook it automatically, still too shocked to speak. "Good morning, Danny Martinez," she said. "Welcome to the Apache Nation of New Sonora. Your dollar bought you membership in something your ancestors would be proud of. We're home now, all of us." Danny looked around at the impossible scene unfolding around his tiny ranch. His land, his worthless, debt-ridden land, was suddenly the center of what looked like an entire civilization appearing out of nowhere. He thought about the corporation's eviction notice, about the 40,000 credits he owed, about the father he lost and the heritage he never understood. "I don't understand," he finally managed to say. "Why here? Why me?" Maria's smile grew wider. "Because this is Apache land now. You owned it. You're one of us whether you knew it or not, and we always take care of our own. Come on, Danny. You've got a lot to learn about who you really are." The next 6 hours passed like a dream. Danny wandered through what used to be his quiet, dying ranch and watched it transform into a bustling settlement. The Apache people worked with an efficiency that seemed almost supernatural. They had done this before, he realized. This wasn't their first planetary landing, wasn't their first time building a home from nothing. Maria stayed by his side, explaining everything as it happened. The ships were arranged in a traditional circle pattern, representing unity and protection. Each family clan had their designated area, and they were already setting up temporary shelters while construction drones began surveying for permanent buildings. The technology was impressive but not flashy. Everything served a purpose, blending function with cultural significance. "We left Earth 32 years ago," Maria explained as they walked past a group unloading solar collectors covered in traditional Apache basket weave patterns. "A coalition of tribes decided we were tired of being second-class citizens in our own homeland. The government offered us charter rights to explore and settle beyond the outer colonies. They thought we would fail, that we would come crawling back within a year. But you didn't, Danny said. No, we didn't. We thrived. We found abandoned alien technology on a dead world near the Perseus Arm. We studied it, adapted it, and combined it with our own knowledge. Our engineers were some of the best Earth had, but they were always held back by corporate interests and government restrictions. Out here, we were free to innovate. Maria gestured toward a passing transport that hummed almost silently. Our ships use half the fuel of corporate vessels and can travel twice as far. We learned to work with space the way our ancestors worked with the land. Respect it, understand it, become part of it. A young man approached them, carrying a data tablet. He had a strong jaw and intelligent eyes, and he moved with the grace of someone trained in combat. Commander Blackfeather, the perimeter sensors are online. We're also detecting increased corporate chatter. They know we're here. Thank you, Jake, Maria said. This is Jake Redhawk, my second-in-command and chief pilot. Jake, meet Danny Martinez, the man who sold us this land. Jake studied Danny for a moment, then offered his hand. Your father was Vicente Martinez, right? He served with my uncle in the Martian Construction Corps back in the 20s. My uncle said Vicente was the hardest working man he ever met. I'm sorry for your loss. Danny shook his hand, surprised. You knew my father? Only by reputation, Jake said. But reputation matters among our people. Your father was respected, even if he never came back to the tribe. That respect extends to you. He turned back to Maria. The corporate facility is powering up their communication arrays. I think they're calling for backup. Maria nodded calmly. Expected. We'll deal with it. Continue with the settlement plan. Jake saluted casually and walked away. Danny watched him go, still trying to process everything. He said, I have respect among your people, but I didn't even know you existed until yesterday. Respect isn't just about what you know, Maria said. It's about blood, about family, about the choices your ancestors made. Your great-great-grandmother walked away from the tribe to give her children a better life. That took courage. Your father kept the stories alive even when he was far from home. That took dedication, and you stayed on this land even when it would have been easier to give up and leave. That takes honor. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You've been Apache all along, Danny. You just didn't know the word for what you were. Thunder's screaming from the stable interrupted them. Danny had almost forgotten about his horse in all the chaos. I need to check on him. He's been going crazy since before dawn. Let's go together, Maria said. They walked to the stable, a simple structure Danny had built with his father 5 years ago. Thunder was indeed going wild, kicking at his stall and trying to break free. But when Maria approached, the horse suddenly calmed. He stuck his head over the stall door and nuzzled her hand. Maria whispered something in Apache, words Danny didn't understand, and Thunder whinnied softly in response. He knows, Maria said quietly. Animals always know their own kind. Thunder was never just a horse, Danny. Look at him. Really look. Danny studied his horse carefully for the first time in months. Thunder's eyes were intelligent, almost human. His coat was darker than any natural black, and in the right light it seemed to shimmer with colors that shouldn't exist. The horse stood taller than he remembered, more muscular and powerful. And there was something else, something in the way Thunder moved and breathed that seemed perfectly adapted to this alien world. We brought horse embryos from Earth when we left, Maria explained, but we also brought something else. Genetic modifications based on old tribal knowledge. Our ancestors believed some animals carried the spirits of the land. We found a way to make that belief real. Thunder is a descendant of our breeding program. Someone must have sold him or his parents years ago, and he ended up with your father. My father never said anything, Danny protested. Your father probably didn't know. Thunder was just a colt when he got him. But the horse found his way back to his people. That's not coincidence, Danny, that's destiny. Maria opened the stall door and Thunder walked out calmly. We need him. We need to breed more horses like him for this world. And we need you to help us do it. You know ranching better than most of our people. Before Danny could respond, alarms started blaring from the Apache ships. Jake's voice came over speakers throughout the settlement. Corporate security forces approaching from the east. 6 gunships and 2 armored transports. They're broadcasting an eviction order to all settlers. All defensive units to stations. People moved quickly but without panic. Danny watched as Apache warriors ran to their positions, some manning ship weapons while others gathered rifles and energy shields. Children were ushered into the larger transports while engineers activated defensive barriers that shimmered into existence around the perimeter. Maria's face became hard and cold. They're faster than I expected. But it doesn't matter. This is our land now. We paid for it legally. She looked at Danny. You still have that silver dollar? Danny pulled it from his pocket. Yes. Good, that's our legal claim. $1 paid and accepted. We have every right to be here. The corporation can't evict us without violating a dozen interstellar settlement laws. She started walking toward the command ship. Come with me, Danny. You're about to see why humanity earned respect among the other species in this galaxy. And you're about to learn what it means to be Apache. Thunder followed them without being led. The horse walked beside Danny like a guardian or a brother. In the distance, Danny could see the corporate gunships approaching, their weapon systems clearly visible. They were military-grade craft, designed to intimidate colonists and enforce corporate will. Against most settlers, they would be overwhelming. But the Apache weren't most settlers. As Danny climbed the ramp into Maria's command ship, he saw the weapon systems coming online. He saw the shield generators humming with power. He saw warriors taking positions with a discipline that came from decades of training. And he realized something that should have been obvious from the start. These people weren't refugees running from a fight. They were warriors who had been waiting for one. The corporation had no idea what they were about to face. And Danny, standing between Maria and Jake in the command center, felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like he belonged. The command center of Maria's ship was unlike anything Danny had seen before. The walls displayed holographic images of the surrounding terrain, showing the approaching corporate forces in real time. But the displays also showed traditional Apache symbols and patterns, flowing and shifting like living art. The technology and culture were completely merged, inseparable. Corporate commander is broadcasting, Jake said from his station. Want to hear it? Put it through, Maria said calmly. A harsh voice filled the command center. Unidentified vessels, you are in violation of Frontier Holdings Corporation territorial rights. You have 1 hour to evacuate, or we will use force to remove you. Any resistance will be met with lethal response. This is your only warning. Maria picked up a communication device. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. This is Commander Maria Blackfeather of the Apache Star Nation. We have legal claim to this land through legitimate purchase from the rightful owner. We are not in violation of any territorial rights. We suggest you review Interstellar Settlement Law Section 47, Subsection 12 before you do something you'll regret. There was a pause. Then the corporate voice came back, angrier now. There is no such thing as an Apache Star Nation. You have no legal standing. Evacuate immediately. Check your databases, Maria said. We've been registered with the Galactic Council for 20 years. We have full sovereignty rights, and we're not going anywhere. She ended the transmission and looked at Jake. How long until they reach weapons range? 15 minutes at current speed, Jake replied. They're trying to intimidate us by coming in fast and loud. Let them come, Maria said. She turned to Danny. I need you to do something for me. Take Thunder and ride out to the corporate forces. Show them that silver dollar and tell them this land was purchased legally. It needs to be on record that we tried peaceful resolution. Danny stared at her. You want me to ride a horse towards 6 gunships? I want them to see a traditional Apache on a traditional Apache horse defending his land with a legal document. It's symbolic, but symbols matter. They also matter to the Galactic Council observers who are definitely watching this situation unfold. We need to show we're in the right before we show them what happens when someone tries to take what's ours. The Galactic Council is watching? They watch everything on frontier worlds. It's how they decide which species deserve expansion rights and which ones don't. This is humanity's test as much as it is ours. Maria smiled grimly. Now go be a warrior, Danny Martinez. Show them who we are. 10 minutes later, Danny was riding Thunder across the purple plains toward the approaching corporate forces. His hands were shaking and his mouth was dry. He had the silver dollar in one pocket and a small recording device Maria had given him in the other. Behind him, he could feel the presence of the Apache settlement. Thousands of people who had accepted him as one of their own. Thunder seemed to understand the importance of the moment. The horse moved with confidence and power, his hooves drumming a steady rhythm on the alien ground. Danny had never been much of a rider back on Earth, but something about Thunder made it easy. The horse anticipated his movements, responded to his thoughts. It was like they were connected somehow. The corporate gunship slowed as they saw him approaching. Danny could imagine the confusion of the pilots, a lone man on a horse riding out to meet their military force. It must have seemed insane. Danny pulled Thunder to a stop about 500 yards from the lead gunship and held up his hand in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. A speaker crackled from the gunship. "Rider, identify yourself." "My name is Danny Martinez," he called out. "I'm the legal owner of this land and I sold it yesterday to Maria Blackfeather and the Apache people for $1. This is a legal transaction protected under interstellar settlement law. You have no right to evict us." $1 isn't a legitimate sale price, the voice sneered. "That's clearly a sham transaction." "It's a traditional Apache exchange," Danny said. "Legal and binding. The Galactic Council recognizes cultural traditions in land transfers. You can check the law. Last chance, Rider. Turn around and evacuate with the rest of these squatters or be removed by force." Danny looked at Thunder, then back at the gunships. He thought about his father, about his great-great-grandmother who walked away from the reservation with nothing but pride. He thought about Maria and Jake and all the people who had traveled across the stars to find a home. And he thought about the corporation that had killed his colony with greed and indifference. "No," Danny said clearly. "This is our land. Come take it if you can." The gunship's weapons powered up with a high-pitched whine. Danny tensed, preparing to die. But before the ships could fire, the air around him rippled and shimmered. A shield bubble appeared, generated by hidden emitters Thunder wore in his saddle. The corporate weapons fired, bright lances of energy that should have vaporized both horse and rider. Instead, the energy splashed harmlessly against the shield. Thunder reared up on his hind legs, screaming defiance at the gunships. And behind Danny, rising into the air like avenging spirits, came the Apache fighter craft. They moved faster than anything the corporation had, dancing through the sky in patterns that seemed more like art than combat. Within seconds, they had surrounded the corporate forces. Maria's voice came over open channels. "You fired on a peaceful negotiator. You attacked a man carrying a white flag. The Galactic Council will see this. Humanity will see this. And now you'll see what happens when you threaten Apache people on Apache land." The Apache fighters didn't destroy the corporate ships. They disabled them. Precision strikes took out weapon systems and engines without killing crews. The gunships crashed to the ground, their pilots alive but helpless. The armored transports tried to turn and run, but Apache ground forces appeared from concealed positions, using the purple grass and terrain for cover exactly like their ancestors had used deserts and mountains. It was over in less than 3 minutes. The entire corporate force was neutralized without a single death. Danny sat on Thunder, breathing hard and trying to process what had just happened. Jake's fighter landed beside him and the pilot jumped out grinning. "Nice speech," Jake said. "Very traditional. Your father would have been proud." He looked at the disabled corporate ships. "They'll send more, of course. Probably hire mercenaries this time. But we sent a message today. We're not victims. We're not refugees. We're Apache and we fight for what's ours." Back at the settlement, Danny was greeted like a hero. Children ran up to touch Thunder, and warriors nodded at him with respect. Maria met him at the stable, her face serious but satisfied. "The Galactic Council transmitted a message," she said. "They're reviewing the situation. The corporation's attack on you violated a dozen laws. We're officially recognized now." She paused. "But Jake's right. They'll send mercenaries. Probably the Kresh. They're the worst of the worst. Aliens who love fighting and don't care about human law." "Then we'll fight them too," Danny said, surprising himself with his own conviction. "Yes," Maria agreed. "We will. But first you need to learn how to be a warrior. No more symbolic rides. Next time you'll be in real combat. Are you ready for that?" Danny looked around at the settlement, at the people who had become his tribe in just one day. He thought about everything he had lost and everything he had gained. He thought about Thunder and the shield that had saved his life. And he thought about his father's stories, finally understanding what they meant. "Teach me," he said. The weeks that followed were the hardest and most fulfilling of Danny's life. Every morning before dawn, Jake would drag him out of bed for combat training. They started with traditional Apache warrior techniques, moves and strategies passed down through generations. Then they adapted those techniques for modern warfare, showing Danny how ancient wisdom applied to energy weapons and spacecraft. "Our ancestors were masters of guerrilla warfare," Jake explained during one session. both of them breathing hard after a sparring match. They knew how to use terrain, how to strike fast and disappear, how to make larger forces waste their strength chasing shadows. Nothing's changed except the scale. Space has terrain just like mountains and deserts. You just have to learn to see it. Danny learned to pilot fighters, starting with simulators and gradually moving to real craft. The Apache ships responded to thought as much as touch, using neural interfaces that felt natural once you learned to trust them. He learned to shoot with energy rifles, to coordinate with squad members, to think 3 moves ahead of his enemy. But more importantly, he learned about the culture he had been born into but never understood. Maria spent evenings teaching him Apache history, language, and traditions. She taught him the creation stories, the hero tales, the bitter history of betrayal and survival. She taught him why the dollar wasn't an insult but a sacred bond, why the circle pattern of the ships mattered, why honor was more important than victory. "We could have built an empire out here," Maria told him one night as they watched the stars from her ship's observation deck. "We have the technology, the people, the military strength. But that's not who we are. We're not conquerors. We're protectors. We defend what's ours and we help those who can't defend themselves. That's what being Apache means." The settlement grew rapidly. Buildings rose from the purple plains, a mix of traditional designs and advanced architecture. Fields were planted with crops engineered to thrive in alien soil. Thunder's offspring began arriving, a new generation of horses adapting to New Sonora. Danny found himself becoming an expert in xenobiology, learning how Earth animals could be modified to survive on frontier worlds. But the peace was fragile. 3 weeks after their arrival, the first messages started coming in from other Native American groups scattered across human space. The Navajo had a colony near the Horsehead Nebula. The Lakota were nomadic, traveling between systems in a massive generation ship. The Cherokee had established a successful trading network in the inner colonies. They had all heard about the Apache stand at New Sonora, and they were inspired. A Navajo diplomat named Peter Hosteen arrived on the 4th week, his ship bearing traditional turquoise patterns. Danny was present when Maria met with him in the main council hall. "The corporations have controlled frontier expansion for too long," Peter said. "They exploit desperate people and steal their land when they can't pay impossible debts. What you did here sent a message to every native person in space. We can fight back. We can claim what's ours." "Fighting back isn't about revenge," Maria said carefully. "It's about justice. We need to be better than those who oppressed us," agreed, Peter said. "Which is why we're proposing an alliance. A confederation of tribal nations, united but independent. We share resources, technology, and military support. We become strong enough that the corporations can't pick us off one by one." Danny watched Maria consider the proposal. He had learned to read her expressions over the past weeks. She was cautious, weighing the benefits against the risks. "An alliance means we're choosing sides," she said finally. "It means we become a political power instead of just survivors trying to find a home." "We've always been a political power," Peter replied. "The corporations just wanted us to believe we weren't. The Galactic Council is watching humanity closely. They're deciding if we're mature enough for true expansion into the galaxy. Right now they see corporate greed and exploitation. We could show them something different. We could show them that humanity includes people who value honor, tradition, and sustainable development." The alliance was formed 3 days later. 5 tribal nations joined together, creating a confederation that controlled 7 systems and represented nearly 500,000 people. The news spread fast. Some people celebrated. Others saw it as a threat. Frontier Holdings Corporation saw it as a threat. They had already lost their claim to New Sonora and faced huge fines for attacking Danny during his peace mission. Now they were losing influence across the frontier. Their stock prices dropped. Their investors demanded action, and they decided to hire the Kresh. Danny first learned about the Kresh from Jake, who had fought them before. "They're mercenaries from the Andromeda sector," Jake explained. "Big, mean, and they love combat more than anything. They've got 4 arms, thick armor-like skin, and they use weapons that would rip a human in half. They don't take prisoners and they don't retreat. If the corporation hired them, it means they're done playing nice." "Can we beat them?" Danny asked. Jake's expression was grim. "Maybe. They're tough, but they're not smart tactically. They rely on strength and intimidation. Our ancestors beat opponents who were stronger and better armed. We can do it again. But people will die, Danny. Maybe a lot of people. Maria called a war council that night. All the tribal leaders joined via holographic link. Danny was invited to attend, recognition of how far he had come in just a few weeks. The Kresh fleet will arrive in 14 days, Maria announced. We have good intelligence on their numbers. 20 warships heavily armed, maybe 5,000 warriors total. They'll try to overwhelm us with direct assault. It's their standard tactic. We could evacuate, Peter Hosteen suggested. Find another planet. We don't have to fight. Yes, we do, Maria said firmly. If we run now, we'll always be running. The corporations will chase us everywhere. The Galactic Council will see us as weak, and we'll never have a real home. This is where we make our stand. This is where we show the galaxy who we are. A Lakota warrior named Gary Whitehorse spoke up. Our generation ship has defensive capabilities. We can bring it into orbit over New Sonora. It won't be fast, but it's tough and it carries a lot of firepower. The Cherokee can provide supply lines, added a woman named Lisa Swimmer. We've got trade connections throughout the sector. Weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, whatever you need. The Navajo will send 200 fighters and their pilots, Peter said. We might not be as advanced as the Apache, but we know how to fight. Danny listened to them plan, amazed at how quickly the tribes came together. They argued and debated, but there was an underlying unity, a shared understanding that went deeper than strategy. They were family. They were people who had suffered together, survived together, and now would fight together. After the council ended, Danny found Maria alone in the command center. She was studying tactical displays, running simulations of the coming battle. Are we going to win? He asked. Maria looked at him for a long moment. I don't know. The Kresh are formidable, but we have advantages they don't expect. We have courage, unity, and we're fighting for our home. That counts for something. She paused. Your training is about to become real, Danny. In 2 weeks, you'll be in actual combat. Are you afraid? Terrified, Danny admitted. Good, Maria said. Fear keeps you sharp. But don't let it control you. Remember what you're fighting for. Remember thunder? Remember your family. Remember the people who depend on you. That's where courage comes from. Not from being unafraid, but from fighting anyway. Danny nodded, his throat tight. Outside the command center, he could see the settlement lights twinkling across the plains. Families were having dinner. Children were playing. People were living their lives, trusting Maria and Jake and all the warriors to protect them, trusting him. 14 days until the Kresh arrived. 14 days to prepare for the biggest battle of his life. Danny walked back to his quarters, passing Thunder's stable on the way. The horse looked at him with those intelligent eyes, and Danny felt a surge of determination. His ancestors had faced impossible odds and survived. He would do the same. He was Apache now in every way that mattered, and Apache warriors didn't back down. 7 days before the Kresh were expected to arrive, Maria took Danny on a journey. They flew alone in a small shuttle to the mountains north of the settlement, landing near a cave system that sensors showed was filled with unusual energy readings. Danny had asked where they were going, but Maria had simply said he needed to complete his training. The cave entrance was covered in ancient Apache symbols that glowed faintly in the twilight. Danny recognized some of them from his lessons with Maria, but others were older, stranger. They had been painted recently, but they looked timeless. This is a vision quest, Maria explained as they entered the cave. Traditional Apache warriors would go into the wilderness alone, fast for days, and seek guidance from the spirits. We've adapted the practice for modern times, but the core purpose remains the same. You need to understand who you are and where you come from before you can truly fight for your people. Inside the cave, a circular chamber had been prepared. In the center was a neural interface chair, surrounded by holographic projectors. But there were also traditional elements, a fire pit with ceremonial herbs, woven blankets with sacred patterns, and a drum that looked like it had survived centuries of use. The technology allows us to share memories, Maria said. Not just facts or stories, but actual experiences from our ancestors. You'll see through their eyes, feel what they felt, understand what they understood. It's intense and sometimes painful, but it's necessary. Danny sat in the chair, his heart pounding. Maria attached the neural interface to his temples, and the holographic projectors hummed to life. She began to chant in Apache, words that Danny felt in his bones even though he didn't fully understand them. The herbs in the fire pit created smoke that smelled like desert sage and something sweeter, something alien. The world dissolved. Danny felt himself falling backward through time, through generations, through centuries. He saw his great-great-grandmother Rose Longwalker as a young woman on the reservation, her eyes filled with determination as she decided to walk away and make a new life. He felt her fear and her courage, her love for her children and her pain at leaving her people behind. Then he went further back. He saw Apache warriors fighting cavalry soldiers in mountain passes, outnumbered and outgunned but refusing to surrender. He felt their pride and their desperation, their love for the land and their rage at seeing it stolen. He saw the long walk, the forced march of thousands of Apache people to reservations far from their homes. He felt the hunger, the thirst, the exhaustion, and the unbreakable will to survive. But the vision didn't stop at tragedy. He saw Apache children learning from their elders, keeping stories alive even when it was forbidden. He saw families maintaining traditions in secret, teaching their children who they were despite every effort to erase their culture. He saw resistance and survival, adaptation and endurance. The visions jumped forward. He saw Apache engineers working on early space stations, Apache pilots flying the first missions beyond the solar system. He saw Maria as a young officer, brilliant and fierce, frustrated by the limitations placed on her by military bureaucrats who didn't trust native officers. He saw the decision to leave, thousands of Apache people choosing freedom among the stars over comfort as second-class citizens on Earth. And then he saw Thunder. Not his Thunder, but the original horse that started the breeding program. A magnificent stallion named Lightning Runner, genetically modified using knowledge that blended modern science with traditional medicine. The scientists had used DNA from sacred plants, from the soil of Apache homelands, creating something that carried the spirit of Earth wherever it went. Danny saw generations of horses being born in space, adapting, evolving. He saw Thunder's parents, his grandparents, the entire lineage leading to the horse he loved. And he understood. Thunder wasn't just a horse. He was a living connection to home, to heritage, to everything the Apache people carried with them across the stars. The visions intensified. Danny saw battles fought in the darkness between stars. He saw Apache warriors defending settlements against pirates and corporate raiders. He saw families building homes on asteroid colonies, children being born in zero gravity, elders teaching traditional crafts using materials that didn't exist on Earth. He saw adaptation without abandonment, progress without forgetting, and then he saw himself, not as he was but as he could be, a warrior standing with Maria and Jake, defending New Sonora against the Kresh. He saw Thunder charging across purple plains, carrying warriors into battle like the war horses of old. He saw the settlement growing into a great city, a beacon of hope for all frontier peoples. He saw his own children, generations into the future, keeping the stories alive. But he also saw darkness. He saw what would happen if they lost. The corporations strip mining the planet, the Apache people scattered again, the dream of a homeland dying forever. He saw the Galactic Council marking humanity as too violent and greedy for expansion, closing off the stars to his species. He saw the weight of responsibility, the burden of being one person whose choices mattered so much. The visions ended suddenly, leaving Danny gasping and disoriented in the cave. Maria was beside him offering water. He drank it gratefully, his hands shaking. "What did you see?" she asked gently. "Everything," Danny whispered. "I saw everything. The pain and the pride, the losses and the victories. I saw why that dollar mattered. I saw why we can't lose." He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "I saw my father, not as I remember him, but as he really was. A good man trying to honor his heritage while building a life for his family. He was proud of being Apache even when he didn't fully understand what it meant." "He would be proud of you," Maria said. "You've learned more in a few weeks than most people learn in a lifetime. You understand now why we fight what we're protecting. It's not just land or resources. It's identity. It's the right to exist as ourselves, not as what others want us to be." They stayed in the cave through the night. Maria taught Danny songs and prayers, the kind that had sustained Apache people through countless hardships. She taught him about the balance between tradition and innovation, about honoring the past while building the future, and she taught him about leadership, about the responsibility that came with being a warrior. "When the battle comes," Maria said as dawn approached, "you'll be afraid. Everyone is afraid. But you'll also be connected to something larger than yourself. You'll fight not just with your own strength, but with the strength of everyone who came before you. That's what it means to be part of a tribe. You're never alone. They flew back to the settlement as the twin suns rose over the mountains. Danny felt different, changed in ways he couldn't fully explain. He had entered the cave as a confused rancher playing at being a warrior. He left as something more. Thunder was waiting for him at the landing pad, the horse having somehow known exactly when he would return. Danny embraced the stallion, pressing his face against Thunder's neck. The horse nickered softly and Danny understood. They were both carriers of heritage, both bridges between past and future. They were both Apache. Jake met them with urgent news. The Kresh fleet just entered the system. They're 6 days out, but they're coming in fast. Looks like they brought more ships than expected, 25 warships instead of 20, and they've got support craft, maybe 6,000 warriors total. Maria's face remained calm. Then we have 6 days to finish preparations. Gather the war council. It's time to finalize our strategy. She looked at Danny. Are you ready? Danny thought about everything he had seen in his vision quest. He thought about Rose Longwalker walking off the reservation with nothing but hope. He thought about his father teaching him to care for the land even when it was killing him. He thought about Maria and Jake and all the people who had given him a home and a purpose. I'm ready, he said, and he meant it. The next 6 days passed in a blur of preparation. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Ships were positioned. Warriors ran through combat drills until the movements were muscle memory. The civilian population was moved to fortified shelters deep underground. Supplies were stockpiled and medical facilities were prepared for casualties. Danny spent his time with the fighter squadron, learning to coordinate with experienced pilots. They accepted him now, no longer seeing him as an outsider but as one of their own. They taught him tricks and tactics, shared stories of past battles, and made sure he understood his role in the coming fight. On the final night before the Kresh arrived, the entire settlement gathered for a ceremony. Traditional dances were performed, songs were sung, and prayers were offered. Danny stood with Maria and Jake, watching his people prepare for war with grace and dignity. Thunder stood beside him, the horse's presence a comfort and a reminder. Whatever happened tomorrow, they would face it together. All of them, united by blood and choice, by tradition and innovation, by the simple human need to defend what was theirs. The stars wheeled overhead, and somewhere out there, the Kresh fleet was approaching. Danny placed his hand on Thunder's neck and felt the horse's steady heartbeat. Tomorrow would test everything they had built. Tomorrow would show the galaxy what Apache warriors could do. Danny was ready. They all were. The Kresh fleet emerged from hyperspace at dawn, right on schedule. Danny was in his fighter, strapped in and ready, part of a squadron led by Jake. Through his cockpit display, he could see the enemy's ships materializing in orbit. They were massive and brutal-looking, covered in spikes and armor plating that seemed designed more to intimidate than for any practical purpose. Remember your training, Jake's voice came through the communication channel. The Kresh rely on brute force. They'll come straight at us, expecting us to break and run. We're not going to do that. We're going to make them chase us into every trap we've set. Danny checked his weapon systems one more time. His fighter was smaller and faster than anything the Kresh had. It was painted with traditional Apache patterns, and Thunder's image was emblazoned on the nose cone. Maria had insisted on that detail. Symbols mattered, especially in battles that the whole galaxy would be watching. The Kresh commander broadcast a message, translated by their ship's computer. The voice was deep and harsh, like rocks grinding together. Humans of New Sonora, we are Kresh. We have been hired to remove you from this world. Surrender now and you may leave with your lives. Resist and we will destroy everything you have built. You have 1 hour to respond. Maria's response was immediate and clear. This is Commander Maria Blackfeather of the Apache Nation. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. This is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have. If you want this world, come and take it. The Kresh ships moved into attack formation. Danny felt his heart hammering in his chest. This was it. Everything he had trained for, everything he had learned was about to be tested. He thought about his vision quest, about all the warriors who had come before him. He thought about Thunder, safe in a fortified stable below, trusting Danny to protect their home. "All squadrons engage," Maria ordered. The Apache fleet launched from concealed positions. They had been hiding in asteroid fields behind New Sonora's moons and in the magnetic shadow of the planet itself. The Kresh hadn't expected such coordination or such numbers. The Tribal Confederation had brought nearly 200 fighters and support ships, along with the massive Lakota generation ship that hung in high orbit like a fortress. Jake's squadron was the first to make contact. They came screaming out of the sun, weapons blazing. Danny followed Jake's lead, targeting the sensors and weapon systems on a Kresh cruiser. His shots were precise, guided by instinct and training. The cruiser's shields flared and flickered as the squadron's combined fire overwhelmed them. But the Kresh were tough. Even with damaged systems, the cruiser fought back. Danny had to twist and dive to avoid return fire, his fighter dancing through space in patterns his instructors had drilled into him. One blast came so close his shield sparked and warning alarms screamed in the cockpit. "Stay focused," Jake called out. "Don't try to destroy them, just damage and move on, make them chase us." The strategy was pure Apache warfare adapted for space. Hit and run. Strike from unexpected angles. Use the terrain. New Sonora's orbital. Space was filled with debris fields, abandoned satellites, and natural asteroid clusters. The Apache fighters used all of it, leading the Kresh ships into ambushes and traps. The Navajo squadron hit a Kresh battleship from behind, knocking out its engines. The Cherokee support ships laid minefields that the enemy didn't detect until too late. And the Lakota generation ship proved to be a devastating weapons platform, its ancient but powerful guns tearing through Kresh armor. Danny found himself separated from his squadron during a particularly intense exchange. A Kresh fighter had locked onto him and was pursuing relentlessly. The alien pilot was good, anticipating Danny's moves and cutting off his escape routes. Panic started to set in as his shield strength dropped under sustained fire. Then he remembered the Vision Quest. He remembered Apache warriors fighting cavalry in the mountains, using narrow passes and steep cliffs to negate superior numbers and weapons. Space had its own terrain. He just had to see it. Danny dove toward New Sonora's largest moon, heading straight for a canyon system his sensors showed. The Kresh fighter followed, confident in its superior firepower. But as they entered the canyon, Danny's smaller, more maneuverable ship pulled ahead. He skimmed the canyon walls, coming within meters of the rock, making turns that the bulkier Kresh fighter couldn't match. The enemy pilot tried to follow and clipped a canyon wall. The impact wasn't enough to destroy the ship, but it threw the Kresh fighter off course. Danny came around in a tight loop and fired, hitting the damaged section. The Kresh ship exploded in a brilliant flash. "Nice flying, Danny." Jake's voice crackled through the comm. "You just took out one of their ace pilots. Now get back here. We've got more work to do." The battle raged for hours. The Kresh were strong and persistent, but they were fighting a style of warfare they didn't understand. Every time they thought they had the Apache ships pinned down, their targets would vanish and reappear somewhere else. Every time they tried to push through to the planet, they ran into prepared defenses. Maria coordinated everything from her command ship, seeing the entire battlefield and adjusting strategy in real time. She had the Lakota ship move to block a Kresh attempt to break through to the civilian shelters. She sent the Cherokee supply ships to resupply fighters running low on ammunition, and she personally led a strike force that disabled the Kresh flagship's communication systems, throwing their command structure into chaos. Danny flew mission after mission, each one a test of skill and courage. He saved a Navajo pilot whose fighter was crippled. He helped take down a Kresh troop transport before it could land warriors on the surface. He flew through debris fields and plasma storms, trusting his instincts and his training. But the Kresh wouldn't give up. Their culture valued combat above everything else, and retreat was considered the ultimate dishonor. Even as their ships took damage and their casualties mounted, they kept fighting. They adapted to Apache tactics, started working in smaller groups, began using the terrain themselves. The turning point came when the Kresh commander challenged Maria to single combat. It was broadcast across all channels, a challenge that Kresh tradition said must be answered or they would consider their enemy cowards. "Ship-to-ship combat," the Kresh commander growled. "You and me. If I win, you surrender. If you win, We withdraw. Decide quickly, human. My patience runs thin. Danny heard Maria's response and his blood ran cold. I accept, but not ship to ship. If you want to test yourself against Apache strength, fight me face to face. Hand-to-hand combat. Your 4 arms against my 2. Your armor skin against my skills. That's real warrior's honor. The Kresh commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You are brave but foolish. Very well. We meet on the surface of your world in 1 hour. Bring witnesses. This will be a battle remembered by both our peoples. Jake immediately protested over the command channel. Maria, this is suicide. The Kresh are twice our size and built for close combat. You can't win this. I don't have to win, Maria replied calmly. I just have to show them that we're warriors worthy of respect. The Kresh value courage above everything. If I fight well, they'll honor our people even if I lose. And maybe, just maybe, I can surprise them. The battle paused. Both fleets withdrew to neutral positions. Danny landed his fighter near the designated combat zone, a flat stretch of purple plains. Warriors from both sides gathered to watch, Kresh in their heavy armor and Apache in their traditional battle gear. The Kresh commander was terrifying up close. He stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 massive arms, each one capable of crushing a human skull. His skin was thick and gray, covered in natural armor plates. His eyes were yellow and cold, and his mouth was filled with teeth like knives. Maria stood before him in traditional Apache warrior clothing, carrying only a knife and her bare hands. She looked small and fragile next to the alien warrior, but her eyes were steady, and she showed no fear. Danny stood with Jake and the other witnesses, his fists clenched. He wanted to rush forward to stop this insanity, but he knew he couldn't. This was Maria's choice, and interfering would dishonor her. The Kresh commander raised one massive arm in salute. You have courage, human. I will make your death swift. Maria smiled. We'll see. The fight began. The Kresh commander attacked with devastating speed, all 4 arms striking like hammers. But Maria wasn't there when the blows landed. She moved like water, like wind, dodging and weaving and turning the alien's strength against him. She struck at weak points, pressure points her people had learned existed on Kresh anatomy. The commander roared in surprise and pain. No one had ever fought him like this. He increased his speed, his fury, trying to overwhelm her with sheer power. But Maria was patient. She waited for openings, struck precisely, and never stayed in one place long enough to be hit. 10 minutes into the fight, the Kresh commander was breathing hard and bleeding from a dozen small cuts. Maria had a broken rib and a nasty gash on her arm, but she was still standing, still moving, still fighting. Then Maria did something unexpected. She stopped dodging. She let the Kresh commander grab her with 2 of his massive hands. Danny screamed but couldn't move. The alien lifted Maria off the ground, preparing to crush her. But Maria had positioned herself perfectly, with the commander's arms extended. 3 months after the battle, Danny stood on the observation deck of the new council building and watched the sun rise over New Sonora. The purple plains stretched to the horizon, dotted now with settlements and farms. Ships came and went from the orbital station, bringing supplies and taking exports. The Apache nation had become a thriving hub of commerce and culture, and other tribes were establishing their own colonies on nearby planets. Maria stood beside him, her arm still in a brace from the injuries she had sustained fighting the Kresh commander. The alien warrior had sent a message a week after the battle, praising Maria's courage and offering a trade agreement between the Kresh and the Apache nation. It was unprecedented. The Kresh had never made peace with anyone before. The Galactic Council wants to meet with us, Maria said. They're sending ambassadors next month. They want to talk about formal recognition of the Tribal Confederation, about expansion rights, about what humanity can offer the galactic community. That's good news, Danny said. It is, but it's also complicated. The corporations are furious. Frontier Holdings lost billions when their contract with the Kresh failed. Other companies are nervous about what we represent. They're used to being the only human voice in galactic politics. They don't like competition. Let them be nervous, Danny replied. We earned our place here. We fought for it, bled for it. They can't take that away from us, Maria smiled. You sound like a chief, Danny Martinez. Speaking of which, the council wants to officially recognize you as war leader of New Sonora. You'd work with me and Jake, represent our people in military matters, and help train the next generation of warriors. Danny looked at her in surprise. I've only been Apache for a few months. There are people who've been part of this their whole lives. They should lead. Leadership isn't about how long you've been Apache, Maria said. It's about what you've done and who you are. You led fighters in battle. You saved lives. You showed courage when it mattered most. And most importantly, you understand what it means to find your heritage, to discover who you are. That makes you valuable in ways experience alone can't match. Before Danny could respond, Jake joined them on the deck. He was grinning, which usually meant good news or trouble. The Cherokee just sent a message, Jake said. They want Thunder's breeding services. Apparently word has spread about how well our horses are adapting to frontier worlds. Every tribe wants them now. Danny, you're about to become very wealthy. Danny laughed. Thunder's not for sale. But I suppose we could arrange breeding agreements. The horses deserve to spread across the stars. It's what they were made for. Speaking of Thunder, Maria said, we need to talk about the ceremony tomorrow. The Apache elders want to formally adopt you into the tribe. It's a big honor. You'll choose an Apache name, participate in traditional rituals, and become officially recognized as one of our people. I thought I already was one of your people, Danny said. You are, in every way that matters. But tradition requires ceremony. It's how we mark important moments, how we make sure our culture continues. Tomorrow you'll be Apache not just by blood and choice, but by formal adoption. Your children will be Apache. Your grandchildren will carry our traditions. That's important. That evening, Danny rode Thunder across the purple plains. The horse had become famous after the battle, and children would gather to touch him and hear stories about the warrior who rode into combat on a black stallion. But Thunder was still just a horse, still the same loyal companion who had survived with Danny through hard times. They stopped at his old ranch house, the place where everything had begun. It looked small now, surrounded by the new settlement, but Danny had refused to tear it down. It was a reminder of where he came from, of his father and mother and all the sacrifices they had made. He dismounted and walked through the house, remembering the kitchen table where he had sat in despair, reading eviction notices, the porch where Maria had first appeared, the stable where Thunder had sensed the approaching fleet before Danny could see it. So much had changed, but the memories remained. His father's old journal was still on a shelf. Danny opened it and read the last entry, written the day before his father died. Danny doesn't understand yet who he is. I tried to teach him, but maybe I didn't try hard enough. I hope someday he finds his way back to our people. I hope he learns that being Apache isn't about the past. It's about carrying something forward, about being part of something bigger than yourself. That's what I wanted for him. That's what I want for all our descendants. Danny closed the journal with tears in his eyes. His father had known. Somehow his father had known this day would come. The adoption ceremony the next morning was beautiful and solemn. Danny wore traditional Apache clothing provided by the elders. He participated in rituals passed down through generations, some of them adapted for their new home among the stars but still carrying the weight of history. When asked to choose his Apache name, Danny thought about his journey, about Thunder, about everything he had learned. I want to be called He Who Returns, Danny said, because I came back to my people after generations of separation, and because I want to remind everyone that you can always come home, no matter how far you've traveled. The elders approved. Maria painted traditional symbols on his face. Jake presented him with a warrior's weapon, a modern energy rifle decorated with ancient patterns. Thunder was led into the ceremony area, and Danny placed his hand on the horse's neck while taking his oath. I swear to defend the Apache people, to honor our traditions while building our future, to teach our children who they are, and to never forget the price of freedom. I am He Who Returns, and I will fight for our right to exist as ourselves, not as what others want us to be. The gathered crowd erupted in celebration. Music played, traditional and modern blended together. People danced and sang. Children ran around Thunder while the horse stood patiently, accepting their attention with gentle dignity. Over the following weeks, other humans began arriving at New Sonora. Not just Native Americans, but people from all over Earth and the colonies. They had heard about the battle, about the community the Apache had built, about a place where culture and tradition were valued alongside progress and innovation. Some came to trade. Others came to learn. Some came hoping to find a home. Maria established diplomatic relations with a dozen different alien species. The Apache reputation for honor and military skill opened doors that had been closed to humanity before. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were arranged. The Tribal Confederation became a voice for all of humanity in the Galactic Council, showing that humans were more than just corporate exploitation and mindless expansion. Danny spent his time training new warriors, both Apache and others who wanted to learn their methods. He taught them about honor and tactics, about fighting smart instead of fighting hard. He also worked with the horse breeding program, helping Thunder's offspring adapt to new worlds and environments. Frontier Holdings Corporation tried several more times to undermine the Apache Nation, using legal challenges and economic pressure, but each attempt failed. The Tribal Confederation was too strong, too united, too respected by the galactic community. Eventually, even the corporations had to accept reality. The frontier wasn't theirs to control anymore. 2 years after that first dawn, when the Apache fleet had arrived, Danny stood in the same spot on his porch with Maria. The settlement had grown into a city. Fields stretched for miles. Ships came and went constantly. The purple plains were dotted with ranches and farms, homes and schools. New Sonora was truly home now. Do you ever regret it? Maria asked. That silver dollar deal? You could have held out, maybe found a different solution. Danny thought about the question seriously. I regret that I didn't know my heritage sooner. I regret that my father died before seeing this. But the dollar? Never. Best deal I ever made. I paid $1 for a horse and a ranch and got an entire nation, a purpose, and a family. Some people would call that the bargain of a lifetime. Your father would be proud, Maria said. So would your great-great-grandmother Rose. They both wanted their children to have opportunities and to remember who they were. You've honored both those wishes. Thunder appeared from around the house, followed by a dozen younger horses. The breeding program had been incredibly successful. Soon Apache horses would be on 100 different worlds, carrying humanity's spirit and traditional values wherever they went. Danny mounted Thunder and prepared to ride out to the training grounds. Young warriors were waiting for him, eager to learn. Maria had meetings with Galactic Council representatives. Jake was testing new fighter designs that combined traditional Apache engineering principles with cutting-edge technology. Everyone had work to do, purpose to fulfill. As he rode away, Danny looked back at the city one more time. The sun was rising higher, casting golden light across the purple plains. Ships gleamed in orbit. In the distance, children played near grazing horses while their parents worked in fields and workshops. It was everything his ancestors had fought for, everything they had dreamed of. Freedom, home, identity, purpose. A place where Apache people could be themselves without apology or compromise. A place where tradition and progress walked hand in hand. A place where $1